Every day, citizens around the country are faced with new dilemmas that affect them profoundly. Whether it's injustice, discrimination, falling through the cracks, scandal and cronyism, balances of power, ethics, religious freedoms, state versus citizens, and unfunded mandates, and the list goes on and on and on. Welcome to Speak Up. It's directed at those who have fallen through the cracks, and it gives them a voice. It's your turn to speak up, to stand up and fight back. Thank you for joining us for Speak Up. I'm Kevin Avard, your host, and I'm happy to introduce my guest, Corey Lewandowski from
Americans for Prosperity.
All right. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Corey, I really appreciate it. I've seen you on the People's View, and you're pretty active in a lot of different areas here in the state, putting a check on local government and making everybody accountable. There are a lot of topics I want to talk to you about. Let's talk about the budget, New Hampshire budget. Maggie Hassan. If I understand it correctly, and please, if I'm wrong, we'll correct it. But right now, in her budget, she's already including the revenues from the casino. Am I wrong on that?
No, you're right on that. And let's talk about the governor's budget, which she introduced on Valentine's Day.
Right.
I call it the Valentine's Day Massacre, because that's really what it is. The governor has come out and done something which has never been done in the history of New Hampshire. She is actually counting on revenue, which currently, under state law, is illegal.
Now, that illegal, here in New Hampshire, for the people that are outside of New Hampshire, we don't have casinos.
That's right.
But in the budget, we're including the revenue from the hopefully casinos that will be voted in, right?
That's right. So what the governor has said is in her budget, she has calculated $80 million, which is the licensing fee that a entity will pay for the right to win and build a casino should the legislature pass it, which is a long way from happening here in New Hampshire. So she's counting on money based on the future performance of this legislature, which for the last 12 years, the House has never passed a casino bill that I'm aware of, and hence gambling is illegal in the state of New Hampshire.
Other than like lottery tickets, stuff like that.
Oh, sure. No, lottery tickets, and there are exemptions to charitable organizations. If you want to go to your local church or whatever, and they do a casino night, those things, there are ways that those can be done legally with New Hampshire involved, but we're talking a full-size casino, something that your viewers may be equivalent to Foxwoods or Mohegan Sun. This is a $450 million to $500 million facility we're talking about building.
That begs the question, is the fix in, or does she absolutely know that the legislature is going to do this? If she does, that poses a problem. Number two, if she doesn't, how can you build a budget on a straw man like that?
Well, you can't. And there are two very important things that the governor has failed to do in her budget. The first is she's counting on $280 million in gasoline tax revenue for a bill which is before the House right now, sponsored by Representative Campbell from Nashua, to increase the gas and diesel tax. That bill has not become law. If that bill were to become law, and there is many, many questions of if that bill will pass, the projected revenue increase to the state budget is $280 million. Then she's projecting another $80 million in this casino revenue, which again, the bill has not become law. $360 million of the governor's budget is based on this fallacy that the legislature is going to not only act, but pass a bill, and then she will sign it into law, which there is absolutely no certainty of.
So the people who are on fixed incomes, the seniors, when the gas tax, if it gets passed by Representative Campbell, they're going to have to pay that exorbitant gas tax on top. Everybody knows this is the highest ever in history that gas has been during this time of the year. Chances are it'll be even higher in the summer. So the seniors are going to have to absorb that cost. Am I correct?
That's right. So the Department of Transportation at the federal level has said on average a person pays about 4% of their annual income to gasoline.
Right.
The state of New Hampshire has a gas tax right now, which Representative Campbell has proposed increasing 12 cents over the next 3 years. If that were to happen, his figures, which are grossly underestimating things, are he's saying that the average person's car gets 22 miles a gallon. I'm not that fortunate, I have to be honest with you. Maybe factoring hybrids. But elderly people will see their gas price exceed $5 a gallon. It's going to happen. I'm virtually certain of it. We see that right now in the last 4 years, our gasoline price, not only in New Hampshire, but across the country, has literally gone up 100%. The day Barack Obama came in, it was $1.84. Today it's $3.68.
That's going to increase the cost of bread, everything.
That's right.
So they're going to have to absorb that.
That will be passed to the consumer. And so those individuals on fixed incomes, not only will they have to pay more money to get in their car to drive to the store, when they get to that store, all of the things that they're going to be purchasing, all those goods that they're going to be purchasing that are hauled via 18-wheeler or big diesel trucks are going to cost more money, and we are still sitting here in a recession. New Hampshire has fared better than many other states with 5.9% unemployment, but the real story is those fixed incomes, those seniors, those elderly people, they're going to make a decision not to go out. And what will ultimately happen, in my opinion, if you increase that gas tax, you will actually decrease the amount of revenue that you get because less and less people can afford to get in their car and drive.
Talk to me about the county tax. Now, there was some type of county tax that was going to be proposed. It wasn't an income tax, but an additional county tax?
Yeah, and I believe the governor, in fairness to the governor, has said that she will not support a county-wide tax. So it was proposed that specific counties would have basically an income tax. And the governor has said, and she continues to hold to the fact, that she will not support an income tax. However, here's where we are in her budget. The governor has, assumed $80 million in gambling revenue, which may never come to fruition. She's assumed $280 million in gas tax revenue, which may never come to fruition. The state of New Hampshire, as you know, has a balanced budget requirement. So what that means is when we fast forward from today, 14 or 15 or 16 months from now, we're going to be here in June or July of 2014, and there's going to be a mandate to have a balanced budget in the state of New Hampshire. The only option she's going to have, because she's going to be between $500 and $700 million short on revenue, is going to be to implement a 1% sales tax. And that's where we're going. You cannot continue to increase taxes or spend money which doesn't currently exist, hoping that it will come in the future. It doesn't work. I hope I win the lottery tomorrow,
right,
but I forgot to play. And so you can't continue to hope for things which may never come to fruition. It's an irresponsible budget.
I think Anne-Marie Timmons from the Concord Monitor posted something on Twitter saying that the state police are going to require, or they're going to need, an additional $2.5 million if that casino goes in the first year, and $1.5 million every continuing year. So if we bring in the casino, we're going to need more police presence. I'm just trying to figure out, what does that mean? Is there going to be more violence? Is it going to be, what is going on? Why do we need a greater police force because of the casinos?
I think the answer is we don't know. What we hope for is that in an ideal world, the casino, if it were to pass and become law, it would be a revenue generator for the state. But this is all just speculation. It's all just conjecture. At the end of the day, this is a for-profit company that's going to come in and make their profit. And if times are bad and we go through another recession like we just saw in the last 3 and 4 years, I can't imagine, like any other business, a casino is doing well.
Everybody's clamoring on a national level. We got, for all intents and purposes, a $17 trillion deficit. Everybody knows there's a spending problem on a national level. There is a spending problem, and that money is going to China in interest. We're borrowing money to China to send tanks to Egypt. That's just one problem. Now, when the Republicans were in charge of the House, they had a balanced budget. They cut back the spending, and there really wasn't that much blood-curdling cries out there. People, life is still going on. They acted responsibly. Now we see more money going to the higher education, and yet cutting the money from the poor kids. Can you talk a little bit about that with the tax credit or the scholarships?
Sure. So 2 years ago, and then when the Republicans controlled the legislature, they passed a bill to allow tax credit. So basically, not a scholarship program, but a tax credit, a stipend, if you will, that a small business could give, and then families could apply for, and if they were so granted, and it was run through a nonprofit, those families could be entitled to a pot of money, about $2,500, that they would each be then able to send their children or child to the school of their choice. So if you're in a bad school system and you want to put your child in a private school or you want to homeschool, this was an opportunity for businesses to take a deduction off their business profits tax and put it into a fund where individuals, but exceptionally low-income students, their parents could apply for it, receive that money, and then take that money, which is paid directly to the school, mind
Right.
you. Paid directly to the school.
Doesn't go to the parent.
Doesn't go to the parents, goes directly to the school. The nonprofit establishes this, works with the school, says, yes, you're going to accept Susie Smith here. She's going to get a $2,500 benefit from coming, which has been paid for by the business profits tax. This year, the Democrats stepped in and said, you know what, we need the revenue because every time a business pays this and takes off their business profits tax, that's less money of revenue for the state of New Hampshire. So they voted on a straight party line vote from the Ways and Means Committee to repeal this education tax funding credit bill. There were 275 families that have already applied for that money and have been granted that. Now, this is a bill that hasn't even taken effect. It took 2 years to set the program up.
Right.
Let's let the bill work. And a straight party line vote tells me every Democrat voted to take away that tax credit. And it's not about the children. It's about their sensational
money.
appetite for spending more money.
It's about the money, and I'm getting really hot under the collar about this. It's for the poor kids. It's for the kids that have ADD, that maybe they're not in a bad school, but maybe they can go to a tailored school that offers that, another public school or a private school, that can meet the needs of that one individual kid who learns a little differently in a different type of environment. They want to take that away. This is for 11,000 potential students in New Hampshire, boys and girls, those with maybe autism or some Asperger's or regular kids that are learning different, or they have different needs, maybe religious, maybe non-religious, and it's being taken away from them. And I'm going to be really crass here, and it's going to go to the higher education, those who are on tenure, and beef up the fat cats in the higher education. I have nothing wrong, no beef with higher education, but let's stop taking away from the little ones and giving it to the fat cats.
Well, and let's talk about the higher education system. The University of New Hampshire has come to the state and said, we're going to do you a favor. You give us $100 million and we won't raise tuition. Boy, that's mighty kind of you, considering it's taxpayer money. It's $31,000 a year right now to go to the University of New Hampshire. They've got almost 800 tenured professors there that under their contract, by the way, they're union employees, those professors, whose average salary is about $100,000. You add in their benefits, it's $130,000. Every 5 years, they're allowed to take what is called a sabbatical. That means they get paid to not come to work. And I don't know about your job or my job, but I don't get to take every fifth year off and get a full paycheck for not showing up for work that year. It's a shame that they're allowing this to happen. If you were to stop that sabbatical program through the contract process, we could save the university $40 million biannually. $40 million. Why don't we give that to the children who actually need it, who need a little bit of an extra opportunity? Because if you're in a bad school system, as a parent of 4, I want my kids to be in the best school possible. If that means I'm in a town that has a bad school, I want to send them anywhere I can, and if there's a way to go and apply for money to allow them to do that, I'm going to take that opportunity.
It sounds like it's a little cronyism going on here in the state of New Hampshire. Take it away from the ones who need it the most and give it to the fat cats who don't even have to work for it now. And I'm a little perturbed at this because it was a great idea. It was thinking outside the box. It was giving little Susie and Johnny a chance to get out of a system that's not cookie color. It doesn't work for everybody.
You know why the public schools hate it? Because it holds them more accountable. So when you're part of that teachers union and you're a teacher and you're saying, I'm doing the best I can, and my classroom is this or that, and you guys don't understand how hard it is to be a teacher, and then you take those students that are having a hard time learning in your classroom, and you give them an opportunity to learn in a different environment, and they do well. Not only do they do well, they exceed. And then those schools become better than the public schools. The public school teachers can't stand the scrutiny that someone else is doing their job better than they can.
But keep in mind also, and this is what I understand about the program, some of the public schools can actually fight for that money too.
Absolutely they can.
If there's let's have a little competition, North and South. Look, we got a little better program. We want to entice your kids into this program because it's designed to fit that one kid. Why not?
That's exactly right.
Fight for it. Let's have a little competition. What happened to America?
Let's raise the level at all the schools so that your child doesn't have to leave the school system that they're in.
Both private, both
That's
public.
right, and go to another public school, the next town over. If I live in Salem and there's a better school in Pinkerton, which is a public school in Derry, and I can get over there and they're going to give me a tax credit for going there, by all means, I want my kid in the best schools. Right. Let's make those schools compete against each other for the best students and to make sure that at the end of the day, our kids are getting the best education they can.
I think outside the box. So it's one of those things, it's a pet peeve of mine. I know that there are a lot of people that can benefit from it. I think I could have, as a kid, learning, I had special needs, if you will, when I was a younger kid. I just learned differently, that's all. I learned a little visually. I didn't fit in the classroom setting like the other kids did that learned through osmosis.
Well, and look, I'm a product of public schools. I grew up in Massachusetts and grew up in a city called Lowell, right over the border. Went to public schools my entire life. And I had a tough time with those standardized tests. Right. And there was no choice. My parents didn't have any money to send me to another school. Right. And there was no program like this that said, hey, Corey, maybe you can learn better somewhere else. So I toughed it out and did the best we could and had a real hard time. But I think if my parents were given the same opportunity that we're giving parents today, I think they would have taken that opportunity and sent me to a better public school in the same city.
So in effect, really, by taking this opportunity away, it basically says to the poor people, the Democrats say to the poor people, you can't have this exceptional education or this opportunity. That's for the people who have the extra income, who can afford to send your kids to a private school.
Here's the Democrats' argument, and I heard it firsthand because I was at the committee hearing. What they said was, if you want to send your student to PMA in Hudson, Presentation Mary Academy in Hudson, they could potentially get some of that. But the amount of the stipend or the amount that the scholarship would be is $2,500 would never allow your student to go there because the school's just too expensive. So this is a giant waste of money. So it's setting false hopes.
Right.
Well, then you talk to the people at the Presentation of Mary as an example, or any other school, and they say, you know what? If you qualify, we'll help you. We want to help the students. Let us compete.
That's the goal.
That's what we're trying to do here.
It's about the kids.
But it's only about the kids when it's about getting more money to education. And in this scenario where we're trying to get kids the best education possible, it's about state revenue because they want to spend more.
Well, when we're talking about kids, I could also talk about the court systems and how that, there's all different types of money-making schemes, I think, with the New Hampshire courts. God help me if I ever have to go before a judge, because I think by now I'm a pretty well-hated individual. But let's talk about the land tax and how that, who monitors that? How do we develop that? Who set this system up?
So there's an organization in the state called the Board of Tax and Land Appeal. It's a giant state bureaucracy. Most state agencies, or not agencies, but most state boards, you get paid $25 to sit on the board. So the Board of Assessors and Standards or the Current Use Board or hundreds of boards across the state, and they get good, competent people to get paid $25 plus your mileage to go to these board hearings.
Yep.
Well, the Board of Tax and Land Appeal is the place that you would go if your local assessor assesses your property and you disagree with that assessment. He tells you your house is worth $500,000, you think it's worth $200,000, you can file an appeal with the Board of Tax and Land Appeal.
Case in point, if I may interrupt you, sitting on the Redress of Grievance Committee, 2 houses have the same view. One's maybe 50 feet up, maybe the other one's down a little bit further, and one gets taxed a few $1,000s more than the other because some person came in and said, well, you got a little better view, or you don't have a little better view, so you're going to pay more.
That's right.
Here in New Hampshire. And the guy is saying, wait a second, there's a bunch of trees in front of my house. Well, you have the potential for the view. No. Why am I paying more than this guy? And so you go to appeal.
That's right. And
rough luck, Charlie.
Well, and that particular scenario, Mr. Handyboat, I know it well. What he came and he said was, look, I just want a fair hearing. What you think my view is worth and what I think it's worth is a subjective criteria. Because it is subjective. If you tell me the average house, which is 12 by 24, is worth this, and okay, we can analyze that. Right. But my view and your view, what we think is equal, may not be. So he went to the Board of Tax and Land Appeal, and they said, we're not going to hear the case. So he said, well, how many cases do you hear a year? And they said, 99 of those. They hear 99 cases a year, and they said, well, how many do you adjudicate on behalf of the taxpayer? And they said, we don't keep that record. So how can you not keep that record? Now, these are individuals who make $130,000 a year. They are part-time employees, mind you, that make $130,000 a year with their benefits. They are appointed by the New Hampshire Supreme Court for basically what is a lifetime appointment in many cases. And then if you do go to them and they vote against you, your only appeal is to go to the Supreme Court, which just appointed the individuals to be on this board. So
rough luck, Charlie.
We proposed a few years back that you get rid of this board, that you save the taxpayers $1.7 million a year, and the chairman of the board came to the state Senate and testified and said, At $25 a year plus mileage, you will never find good people to do this job. As she sat in front of 5 state senators who make $100 a year. And I just said, you are so out of touch with reality.
What a
They've got
slap in the face.
16 staffers there.
Right.
And just absolutely, they candidly just lied during their testimony.
And there's
it's
no
just a shame.
accountability.
No accountability whatsoever.
How do we infuse accountability into our government?
Well,
What
is the
can we
problem.
do?
You know, I had the opportunity to go to the gas tax hearing, Representative Campbell's gas tax hearing. And we heard from small business owners and loggers and truckers who said, if you implement this gas tax, I will be out of business. And maybe you don't care, but it's important to me and my family.
I clean carpets. I can't keep raising my prices,
That's right.
to go clean, because of the gas tax. I have to fuel my engine. It runs the entire time that I'm cleaning the carpets because it's a direct drive. That costs me money. If I pass it on to the customer, it's just a trickle down. It just keeps, when is it enough?
Well, it only becomes enough when you can get enough people incensed about something that they'll actually do something about it. We saw it a couple years ago with the LLC tax issue, where business owners literally closed their shops for days on end to go up and testify in Concord. And I hate to say it, but that's where we're going. Because this particular legislature, which is being dominated right now by a insatiable appetite to spend, doesn't know when enough is enough. And the fact that they want to increase your car registration fee because they want to generate more money, that money has to come from somewhere. If you're paying more money to register your vehicle every year to be on the road, that's less money you have for something else, which means a local restaurant doesn't get patronized, maybe you don't buy as much gas, maybe you don't take your family on vacation, whatever it is.
Do seniors on Social Security get raises?
They may get a cost of living increase, but it will never keep up with what they're doing here in New
It was a
Hampshire.
very facetious question. But these are the people that are going to pay these bills. And why in the world they keep voting the same? It's like insanity. You keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, and it's not fix anything. Would you please, let's go back to, let's vote for people who want responsible government, who want to lower your taxes for real. Because these are the same people that have to pay them.
Well, let's talk about home heating oil.
Oh, yeah.
The Democrats just voted to raise the tax on the fuel by 25% for anybody who's buying home heating oil. I don't know what your home's fueled on. Mine's on propane, right? So 25 cents. Now, the tax right now is 1 cent, so they want to raise it only 25%, so $1.25, because the state is looking for additional ways to raise revenue. The governor has proposed hiring 7 new auditors at the Department of Revenue Administration with the explicit language in there that they must go out and generate $28 million in revenue. Do you know where that revenue must come from?
You need a quota. Get some.
That revenue,
shake them down.
That's it. That's the equivalent of our IRS here in New Hampshire going to small businesses, finding violations, and making sure that you as a small business owner pay those violations. So the DRA is going to go out. They hired 7 people to generate $28 million per year. That's their job. This isn't to help small businesses. This isn't to make sure you've complied with the law. This is to go out and generate revenue, and that is their job because that's the mentality. Small businesses need to pay more, and I disagree with it.
You know what? I think that's what's going to draw a lot of people to New Hampshire to start up a business. What do you bet?
Well, right. I mean, here, we're in a border community. If I've got the opportunity to start my business in Tingsboro, Mass., or Nashua, New Hampshire, what am I going to look at? What's my tax burden? What's my BET? What's my BPT? Right? My business enterprise, my business profits
Are those
tax.
going up?
They're going up as well because that's all this type of legislature knows how to do is raise taxes and fees. And, I hear time and time again, well, we've got a strong Republican majority in the state Senate. They're going to stop some of this from happening. I say hogwash. There are members over there. This is a nonpartisan issue. They like to raise taxes. They think they can spend their money better than you can. These people need to be held accountable.
And how do we do that?
Well, the most important thing is understanding what's going on at the State House. The gas tax hearing today, there was a big, strong showing. They had to move it from one room in the Legislative Office Building to Representative Hall. The hearing right after that was something called Northern Pass. There were hundreds of people lined up to get in there because these people are organized and understand that we don't need to raise more money to have our state function. What Maggie Hassan has proposed doing is increasing our state spending by 11%, which is exactly what was cut
just the
2 years
opposite.
ago. That's exactly right. She's in favor of this war on energy. Increase your fuel tax, increase your diesel tax, increase your home heating oil tax, make you pay more money for RGGI, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, right? These are all things that the state wants to generate money from you so that they can go and spend money and give it to politically connected people. It's wrong, I believe, as I think the last legislature did, that letting people keep more of their money. Don't charge you more to raise your car registration fee. Charge you less, right? Maybe you'll go buy a second car. Maybe you won't. But that means if you spend $5 less or $10 less or $15 less, you can go put that in your gas tank. And we're going to see $5 a gallon gasoline. Here's a quick story. Right before the election, I had the privilege of going up to Manchester, New Hampshire, and lowering gas prices to $1.84 a gallon, the same price it was the day Barack Obama took office. We said the first 150 cars that came in would give you 15 gallons of gas. This was such a humbling experience, and I am not exaggerating. I firmly believe there were people who waited in that line who lived in their vehicles. And I truly believe that, and it's a sad state of affairs.
Really?
There were people who waited in line for hours to pay $1.84 a gallon because it was so crucial to them to save $20 or $30 that is literally their livelihood of either going out and looking for a job or finding a place to live. And that's what I don't think these individuals think about. You know, Governor Hassan, for all her qualities, doesn't pay a property tax in the state of New Hampshire. She lives in subsidized housing on Phillips Exeter's property, and I understand that's where her husband is the principal of one of the most prestigious high schools in the country.
But it really is hard for her to feel our pain.
It's difficult to understand when you say, Governor, you've got a state-issued vehicle, gas is $5 a gallon, how does that affect your pocketbook? Well, maybe it affects you when you drive to your $3 million home in Connecticut on the ocean. Maybe it doesn't. But you're not paying property taxes here in New Hampshire. You're not living under the same rules that you're asking us to live under. And, you know, maybe there are people out there who don't mind paying a little bit more, but I got to tell you, I do.
So this is I'm probably the most heated that I've ever been in on this show because it's really starting to weigh in. Then I think of the healthcare issue, the exchanges, and it just keeps piling up. And it's piling. This is just scratching the surface of a lot of the issues. And the pain is getting a little bit more every time. And I'm sure that there are people out there that are watching the show that are saying, what do we do? How do they get in touch with you? How do they get involved? What is your suggestion? Obviously, they want to be aware. They can be aware by what? Contacting you?
The easiest way for us is you come right to our website. It's www.afphq, for Americans for Prosperity Headquarters.org. You click on the state chapter. You'll find New Hampshire. It's very easy. You sign up. Every Wednesday, I put out an email to all of our members. It says, here's what has taken place last week at the State House. Right. Here's what's taking place this week at the State House. Here are the hearings you might want to know about. Here's how to get in touch with your elected officials.
Transparency.
Very easy. Just last week, we saw, once again, the legislature killed something called Right to Work. Right to Work is a piece of legislation that we have been advocates of for a long time. And what it says is, if you want a state job, this is a great example. If you want to be a state employee right now, you are forced under the legislation to join a union. Right. There's no way around it. You cannot be a state employee and not join a union unless you have a religious exemption, and there are very few of those. If you make New Hampshire a right-to-work state, what that will allow is, if you want to join that union, you can do so.
It's your choice.
If you don't want to, you don't have to.
I thought choice was a big deal.
Well, it's only important when it fits specific buckets, right, and when it's convenient for it to be a choice. But right now, the state still collects, and this is a shame. The state collects money every week or every 2 weeks out of your paycheck to pay those union dues, collects that money, serves basically as an agent, and then gives that money to the unions. We got to get the state out of that business. This is not their core competency.
Is North Dakota a right to work?
I think North Dakota is a right to work state. Indiana is a right to work state. We just saw Wisconsin. We just saw Michigan. Michigan, of all places, just passed a right to work law that no longer requires you to join a union if you don't want to.
South Carolina, maybe?
South Carolina is a right to work state.
And Bowen was going to move there until they got some federal intervention into that.
That's exactly right.
Which is another issue, another time.
No, that's exactly right. So what you see in states as Indiana, as an example, became a right to work state. They've got a very aggressive governor who believes in cutting taxes with an aggressive legislature. 1 in every 4 jobs in our country right now is being created in Indiana. I mean, these aren't my facts; these are the facts.
And Texas, that's another one.
Texas is another great example of right to work. And you know,
people are leaving California in droves. It's a problem.
As they should be. You know, even if you are part of the 0.5% of the ultra rich, your tax rate, and we saw this with Phil Mickelson, the golfer. You know, he's paying 66 or 67% of his income in taxes because of the way the state of California has structured their taxes, you can't sustain, it doesn't matter if you make $10 million, right? And you're paying almost 70% on the dollar, so your net income is $3 million. That's a lot of money. But for a guy who's earned $10 million, that's a real problem. And so you see companies leaving California, you see the wealthy leaving California. That state will ultimately go to bankruptcy because they continue to spend way beyond their means. And, you know, where we're going right now in New Hampshire with this Obamacare, which the governor has just gotten us into, is we believe there's going to be between 50 and 80,000 new Medicaid recipients on the rolls in New Hampshire alone. Now, they're saying the federal government's going to pick up that piece. Let's just be honest.
Let's
It
look
will
at
not
education.
happen.
Look, where do they pick up on education? There's all these federal mandates. How much of those federal mandates does the federal government actually come into play and actually fulfill their promise? They don't.
That's right.
It's a fraction. Where did that term Indian giver come from, by the way?
I don't know where it came from, but I can tell you.
The federal government is an Indian
Well,
giver.
they're terrible. They're terrible. And again, it's not a partisan issue because John Hunt, Representative Hunt from Cheshire County, is the one who made the deciding vote to get us into Obamacare. It's very clear. You know, Senator Bradley and Senator Sanborn both voted no. Representative Hunt, who was the third Republican on that committee, said yes. And now we're going to be in this program where 50 to 80,000 new people are going to come onto the Medicaid rolls. The government, the federal government will pay a portion of that for a while, and then guess what's going to happen? New Hampshire will get stuck with all those people and have to pay their health care costs moving forward, and it will literally bankrupt our state.
Well, we need to get a little more active, and we need to get people involved. That's the only way we're going to get to get anything done. I liked the doctor who was speaking at the breakfast, and I'll close with this on our show because we're running out of time. But I think he had an illustration about a gentleman who wanted to please his mother. Did you hear this?
No.
It was Mother's Day. And so, Mom, I'm sending you a package for Mother's Day. So he goes to this place and they have these really expensive exotic birds. They can add, they can talk, they can dance, they're very trainable. He buys them, $5,000 a piece, sends them to his mom. Mom, did you get the package? Oh, yes. Did you get the birds? Oh, they were delicious. Mom, those birds were $5,000. They could add, they could talk, they could do all kinds of tricks. Well, they should have said something.
Oh, boy.
Right? And that's really what's happening here. If America doesn't get up and start speaking, you're going to get eaten up. Your liberties, your money, it's all going to get wiped out. And there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. Now's the time. I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Appreciate you having me.
All right.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching Speak Up. We appreciate you watching the show. Please, if you want to get in touch with us, call us or email us at speakupnh@gmail.com or write us at P.O. Box 207, Nashua, New Hampshire, 03061, Center for Redress of Grievances. Until next week, thanks for watching.
Every day, citizens around the country are faced with new dilemmas. Dilemmas that affect them profoundly. Whether it's injustice, discrimination, falling through the cracks, scandals and cronyism, balances of power, ethics, religious freedoms, state versus citizens, and unfunded mandates, and the list goes on and on and on. Welcome to Speak Up. It's directed at those who have fallen through the cracks, and it gives them a voice. It's your turn to speak up. To stand up and fight back.